Please, some experiences, but also some concrete suggestions, ideas, even things that we've just heard from around this table, ideas where we can think whether it might work here, why it hasn't been tried, and so on. So please, yeah, we'll have a moving mic. Yes.
Because it said that from 2002 to 2014, around 6,24,000 IDPs mentioned, and also mentioned that in 2013, 1,24,000. So I can understand what 2013, what was the significance that all this 1,24,000, or whether this 1,24,000 are part of that 6,24,000.
I guess would be because this is a very, very specific question. Yeah, please briefly. Then I think I will then ask. This also please respond.
Simply, it shows the increase in the IDPs from the beginning of 2002 to 2014. In the early years of after the Taliban regime, up to 2006, we had a peaceful period. Recently, in 2011, 12, and 13, we have a lot of IDPs, causes of insecurity, military operations, armed conflicts, narcotics areas, and especially the military operations, direct small arm fightings, or cause displacement internally within Afghanistan, especially from the southern provinces, eastern provinces, and internally displacement from central Afghanistan due to the economical conditions. This figure shows the increasement and the displacements. Thank you for your question.
I gave two examples in my presentation. One is the coral hosting, which has been done in 2012. And as we are already shown in the presentation, there is High Court ruling order that eviction cannot be done without prior notice, or it should be relocated. But in case of eviction of coral slum, it was not done that way. People are, miking was done just one day before the eviction, and it was done in a very inhuman way. And the reason they are giving, like they are going to develop, these people are polluting the area, the lake and everything. The government didn't give any development plan for which this land was a must to acquire. And if I had a chance to go back to the slide, you can see there is like big tower building, and which is encroaching the same lake like the slum people. And another is the Purvachal. My argument is there, the government couldn't justify why they are acquiring 6,000 acres of land from the rural folks who are living there like for hundreds of years, and giving that land to the rich people. Actually, those who have already land and plot in the city. And in some study it is saying that 20% population of Dhaka city, they own 80% of land. So there should be some justification of acquisition. It's not like constructing a road or constructing a bridge. So this is actually the development. It is always said the government can acquire any land any time, but there should be some justification, the clear definition, and they should go by some policy, like relocation policies and everything.
Judicial interpretation of what public purpose, what satisfies.
Not very clear.
Can I add to what the IMA has said? When it comes to some of the cities out of Colombo, we have another issues with the ongoing government are promoting tourism in the country, right? And mainly victims are the fisher folks. And my colleague is here; he can highlight more things. And the whole, like what Maldivian friend said, it is very essential in how not only housing, when it comes to the right to livelihood and all other things, if you are considering with the Nepal context and all that. The special place like Kalpitiya tourism development plan, if they are right now, out of 17 islands, 14 islands was proposed to the development activities. That means mainly for tourism. And some of these things, when the people are evicted, they have to go in the interior, the places where they can continue their livelihood. That is a main part. And some of the areas where they have offered to get for the housing, it's sometimes 13, 14 kilometers away from the sea. And how the fishermen, how they can continue their livelihood. That is the main thing. The one thing what I got from all your presentations, the one is, even though we have the very good IPR, the involuntary IRP policies, resettlement policies, but it is posed by, even though sometime from the World Bank or ADB or the JBIC or the international financial institutions. Due to that, our own governments are not making sense. To get the loan, they just make a policy. It's not applying to the other projects. Like the Chinese banks, they are completely blind on these policies. And therefore, we should ask from the multilateral institutions like World Bank and ADB just not to have the name policy. It should be enforced by the government as a legal entity into the kind of a law, not just a policy. It should be a law. And if we can convert it to that, that can be it can be implemented into the other the project as well. Her example in the slave island, the people were evicted, and now they have hired that the land space to the Tata. Now what they are going to do, they are going to construct the many condominiums, nearly 700 housing plots in evicted the 34 housing, and with the big housing mall and the hotel complex. But the demand, normally when they were displaced, they were not consulted what to get this land for, what kind of development, what they are going to get.
The situation in the urban development areas, I would like to emphasize it's not only for Sri Lanka, maybe with other South Asian countries also, on the protection of housing. There are many rehabilitation, reintegration happening. They are providing places, as also it was mentioned. There is no economical situations taken into consider. There is no protection taken into consider. There are no adequate toilet facilities. There is no adequate water facilities. If you take our country, the whole northern district, where after war, people are resettled, but without these facilities. There are no proper schooling facilities, hospital facilities. So this protection issues need to be considered, and also social economical. Maybe it is the same with the region. One point. And other, when they know the dangerous situation, just about 3 months ago it happened in Sri Lanka, and I think all my Sri Lankan friends and others will be also aware about it, a landslide. When the landslides came, they gave out reporting saying in 2000 2005 we were told, in 2006 we were told, okay, and 2010 we were told that to evacuate the place. Where can they go? The poor plantation workers, if you are not given them the place to go. And what happened? We lost 350 lives just after the major lands. So these are things that we don't think of, the protection of people. So it's not only the providing them places or telling the ICE policy you need to evacuate, we have given you warning. No, nothing will happen like that unless you say where to go. You know, so these things I think that it's happening, you know, whether it is flood or landslide or tsunami or whatever, this is happening, and where in national level there must be laws and regulation laid down how to protect people from emergency situations or dangerous situations. So I think this is one thing I would like if it is go in our recommendation to all the South Asian nations.
What we have been trying to figure out is how to deal with evictions, I suppose. But we have to remember that in all the countries and the experiences that we have shared, it is always a war among the rich and the poor. And there's so much nexus between the government, the powerful groups, the developer group, even the politicians, that the poor is always overpowered and there is always eviction, and these policies and these talks are only rhetorics, because they never actually have seen, other than in India perhaps, the light of the day. We have not seen anti-eviction forces, anti-eviction laws being enforced in Bangladesh. We fail totally. So I think in her discussion, Professor Ishar, she did discuss about the master plans, the implementation of master plans, and making it an enforcement through the distribution of land. So land and tenure are things we have to take into regard if we want to think about dealing with this eviction and the rights of the poor to housing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please.
Thank you very much. I think SAHR has taken really a different role. I think this is something really necessary for the whole world, and especially Sri Lankan side. What I want to mention is Colombo became an economic hub, I think, originally. So most of the people start coming into the city. So this recognized, I think, 1953, Dr. Peter Kahneman, and then Ransinga Premadasa. What I want to mention is, why not they go back to the rental system? Because the families are generations. Generation by generation, 3 generations are living in this 450 square feet. So it's, I think, my friend Hiromi, 450 we cannot take it into any consideration. It has to be 800 square feet house at least. We cannot, actually this is a very good voice we can make, at least 800 square feet they will have to have. Because one generation, another, daughter, grandchildren, all are living in. And we are witnessing so many the incidents in Sri Lanka. So this is a place I think we can raise our voice. Go back to rental system, give them a reasonable rental, affordable rental. So then they will try to go away from the city and get back to the rental system. This we had. Dr. Peter Kahneman started this rental housing scheme. So why not we go back? So I think most of the Asian countries will very much they will love to have a rental system and reasonable housing system.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Sorry, I am Nari, means Working Women's Organization. We are working with the working women working in the R&D sector and also in informal sector, agricultural workers. In this forum, I want to tell something about the housing facilities for the working women in urban areas. I missed the lecture of Isra Tapa, but I think she also mentioned it. In labor law and other laws, there are provisions to provide housing facilities for the workers working in the formal sector and factories. But most of the time, most of the cases, there is no such facilities for them. So the worker need to find out a housing or house far from his working place, and they have to go by foot for a long time to go to their factories. At the same time, the housing they are rents is very much low and poor quality housing. Sanitation, water, all are so poor quality. And in a 10 by 10 room, there lives almost 5 to 6 people, married, unmarried girls, a married family with another unmarried girls and their children. There is a so unhuman situation there lives, the workers lives. And they are working from 6 to 10 p.m., 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. After the back, they do not get a fresh or fine place to sleep. So I want to mention in this forum to give a recommendation or something for the working people lives in the urban areas in Bangladesh. Thank you.
Anthony Jesdasan from Sri Lanka. My organization is National Fisheries Solidarity Movement. I am the coordinator of Northeast. I want to mention one point: how to we have to think how to stop the militarization, because Sri Lanka is very important issues. This one, the government is every day they want to catch the people's land, so they are using the militarization. So we have to think then another country also that's a problem same, I think. So we have to think that side, how to stop this type of what do you call militarization.
Situations where there is relocations taking place, but the title is given, it's always assumed to the male head of the household. Is there anything we can share there, please?
If you can quickly just share the case of Bangladeshi garments workers, like we have at least between 1.5 to 2 million garments workers in Dhaka city, and none of them have housing. They're all slum or living in the squat settlements. And whenever there is eviction, these girls, they also lose their jobs as well. So there should be security from, these owners, the government, to ensure housing for these women. Similarly in all other areas of housing.
Please. I think.
I just want to give my idea, like one of my ideas on this whole thing. We are talking about forceful eviction, and I know, like, I don't remember exactly the case, but I think when we talk about forceful eviction, we have to consider having a respected or let's say dependable judiciary. And we have to make sure that before the forceful eviction happens, that we should have orders in place, and then the judiciary should play a key role. I think the best example would still be like India, because we know of a case that where there were illegal slums in an area where they have just taken that particular area, but when the state government, I think in Bombay, if I'm not wrong, I think it's in Bombay, when they try to forcibly evict those people from that location, not in Bombay, I think it's in Delhi, there was a writ petition filed before the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court gave a clear order saying that under right to life, they cannot be evicted unless and until they are being provided alternative like housing facilities. I think it's a good example that where all of the countries can follow, where there's a strong judiciary, they're right-minded judiciary is there. I think this can be, one way of tackling it, at least ensuring or making sure that the government obey the orders of the court. So having a strong judiciary is, I think, very essential for countries like Maldives and definitely for countries like Sri Lanka to ensure that these people are not evicted without having an alternative form of housing.
Yeah, I think that's
on 1978 when it happened in Mumbai. The ruling was of Bombay High Court. So at that time, the Chief Minister was A.R. Abdule, and he evicted thousands of slum dwellers without giving notice, and especially it was the rainy days. And in Mumbai, you get around 100 inch of rain. So at that time, Bombay High Court gave a ruling that you cannot evict people unless you provide them some alternative this thing. And finally, that ruling was confirmed even by the Supreme Court of India. So that ruling is in place. But many times what happens is, even though there is a ruling that you need to give notice, you need to give alternate accommodation, but many times it's not followed. That happens.
Before I take it, my concern.
We call it the extended Rajapaksa's decisions, court decision. Just I want to mention in the main thing in Sri Lankan case, the plantation. Yes. The plantation housing right is never taken to the upstream because after the British left, still we are not giving proper the housing facilities and the land right to the plantation communities. Even though this the incident in the recently with the landslide, the government proposal in the nowadays, it's 5 purchase. It is not owned by them. Only the demarcation they given for the 5 purchase for the construct the housing. And that's even not enough for the people where they are living in the hilly areas.
Nations simply does not have our IDPs. We have some specific recommendations.
Please go ahead.
As I mentioned here, the reason, the biggest reason which is recognized is the armed conflicts and security.
Yes.
In other South Asian countries, fortunately we do not have such problem, except Pakistan, which is now testing the migrations, internally displaced people from South and North Waziristan and in the northwest frontier of Pakhtunkhwa due to insecurity. My colleague Mr. Siddiqui did not touch that issue. I would like him to elaborate what they did or what is in the law for them, what is taught for them, and what rumors are present, what they will do for that, and also the effect of Afghan refugees. They have a big population of Afghan refugees in Pakistan. What they can do or what they are doing, what they can for durable solution for these Afghan refugees.
Any specific?
I'm coming to that. For Afghan internally displaced persons, security, peace and security is a requirement. The causes are not national, it is international and regional. To figure it out, I guess 20% internal causes, 20% international policies. We are the victim of international policies. But in 60% cases, we are the victim of regional policies, especially Pakistan, India, and Iran. When Iran is not in the South Asian countries, so Pakistan and India. They might have some conflicts with each other, but we are the victim of that, and the causes for internally displaced people. As an Afghan, my recommendation is to these governments, to the populations, to the social activists, to influence their government officials to do not make as their policies victims, their politics victims. If they have any problem, please take care of our internally displaced people. Our society, we are totally fed of war. No one likes war in Afghanistan. So it is imposed on us. We are simply the victims of our neighbors and regional countries. Please, from this night, I request you all to make your recommendation to the governments to please do not interfere or do not support those who are involved in wars.
Because I think it's not like we all have the same problem. We have different dimensions in our problem. So I request that you include, don't try to make it too small, because the problems are different, unique. Because in Dhaka city, like the housing, as you mentioned about the worker housing, in many of EPZs, there is space. Even in the Adamji area, the EPZ near Dhaka, there is space for, there is no excuse that they don't have space for worker housing. So in this, I think the government should do some study to find out, with their goodwill, to find out the spaces which can be allotted for low-income housing. And another thing is, in the master plans, it should be demarcated. Because in no master plan, there is no space allotted for housing, particularly for the low income. These two things I like to do. The Washington project. It doesn't make any sense.
In situation, I think different type of recommendation might be here, I think, because due to the quite similar issue also with Afghanistan, because Maoist insurgency made a large people displaced in Nepal also, and flood also at kinds of cause in Nepal to make the people landless and victim. And another thing is that I think it is quite different. Around 58% internal migrant people are coming in the city in search of job in Nepal. So I think we are recommending the government to make a kinds of different kinds of city, including all the facility and industrialization area, so that they can get a job and they will survive. Yeah. So otherwise, government is planning to acquire the land to resettle the slum settlements from the Kathmandu, but the landowner is denying. They are not giving the land to the government, because their saying is that they are quite non-civilized person. They will disturb us. They will hamper our culture, our systems, values. So we are not giving you. And in vulnerable person, how many slum dwellings are here? How many displacement persons are here? First of all, we have to identify it, and then we have to make a plan. We have to make a plan of resettlement. That's called, we are calling it Plan B. Just don't think about to evict. You have to make a Plan B, where to resettle, where they are going, and what types of the house will be there for them. And other institutions like school with facilities, playgrounds, and other things, because they must be attracted.
You said we have talked about IDPs. In Pakistan, we have IDPs from Afghanistan for the last 35 years. I think in Peshawar alone, there were 3 million people. And other parts of Pakistan, there were, and some of them have gone back, and they were, you see, not given tenure rights because they were considered to be temporary guests there. They were provided certain facilities for education, health, transport, businesses, etc. And some of them have gone back. But we have our own problem also. For example, Waziristan, currently, I think 1 million people are displaced during the last 1 year. And most of them are living with their friends and relatives, and government has not been able to provide them basic facilities. And similarly in Swat, it happened about, I think, 3 years back, and they were all displaced, but they went back. That was a good example. So you see, I would like to highlight 2 or 3 points. One is we must learn from the best practices, you see, and it depends on the nature of the government. It depends on the nature of the government you have. For example, in Sri Lanka, you may have a militarized government. It doesn't listen to anything. And you see bulldozers, the Supreme Court also. Yes. In India, in some parts of India, you may have some pro-people leanings in the government. In Pakistan, we have the same problem. Before 1972, all, squatter settlements are bulldozed. And there is a problem with the middle class mentality also. There is a mindset in the professionals also. They think that these squatter settlements are a scar on the face of the city. They should not be there. It devalues their property. In Gulshan area or Kathmandu, if there is a squatter settlement or hutment, you would like to get them removed. But you need them also. Yes. The problem is that the cities can't function without slums. Yes. But there is a mindset, most of the policymakers, town planners, architects, that there should be slum-free cities.
Why people get evicted and why people can't get permanent housing? It is the informal development or the informally developed people who live informally, work informally. I think they are the people that we are trying to deal with. So it is the issue of informality. The other is city governments, state governments, they have this very much, I think, attraction to be a global city, to be a world-class city. And this is what is the root of the big eviction in all the countries. So I think we have to be accountable to the people and we have to deal with that. And thirdly, I have a list of recommendations which I share with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Because with the rapid urbanization, we also face ghettoization. That's a major problem, ghettoization. That's in India, for example, we have Muslims getting ghettoized. In Pakistan, if you talk about Karachi, it's an ethnic division. That the Pakhtun will stay in particular areas and Mohatis in a different area. So I think ghettoizations, we need to have a policy of de-ghettoization, because ghettoization leads to ghettoization mentality, which again leads to various complications and various conflicts. So the South Asian government need to be very cautious about this ghettoization. I think that's and we need to have more cosmopolitan. Obviously. Other thing I think that we need to emphasize on affordable housing. Affordable housing is a way out.
So what do we do now about these recommendations? Can I suggest, could we have one recommendation which is specific to right to housing, maybe using this language about affordable housing? And could we have one which is on forced evictions? So we would just, is that okay? I mean, it's very broad, but it's just to go into the declaration, so we make sure. Is that okay? Does anybody have any suggestions for language? Or would it be okay if we just work with the language that we have down here?
Affordable housing is a key term.
Affordable housing.
That's a major problem.
No, you can address it like put a stop.
Put a stop. Put a stop.
It has to. This is
Put a stop.
the voice of this committee.
That's right. I mean, I'm absolutely glad to remind you this, because I also forget sometimes when we try to draft this in that language we use for the Human Rights Council. But no, this is a declaration coming from people's organizations and so on. So it doesn't have to use the jargon of the UN. It could just put the demands. It's been fascinating, and I only wish we had longer. Thank you so much.